like Jonathan, it's really exciting to be back in front of a whole audience of people. I don't think I've been in a room presenting with this many people. As John said, I work, and actually, while I do work for Royal Mail, I prefer to say that I work for Marketreach, and we think that's a really interesting distinction because what we're about is all direct mail, door drop, partially addressed mail, and looking at the world that way rather than specifically Royal Mail. I'm head of planning and insight there. We, as this heading says, about driving the vision for mail's future in terms of the work that we do. But I kind of looked at that heading after I'd written it and sent it off as the title of what I was doing and thought, kind of looks like I sit in an ivory tower somewhere like Mount Pleasant and just think about mail. And while my team and I, data planners and communications planners and media planners and research people, actually do that, and that's kind of the vision of what we do for Marketreach. I wanted to make sure that everybody understood that what we also do is much more based in the reality of understanding what the industry is facing, what the world is facing. So I actually wrote a second title that's equally accurate, that says that in a world that thinks almost entirely about digital, is focused on the metaverse as the ideal, and where media buying decisions are frequently made by 22-year-old digital natives, how do you get the industry excited about mail and prove that a piece of paper is a great media choice? And somewhere between the two is where our daily work fits together. So there's the big thinking about what's going on with people in the world, but I also wanted to make it clear that we understand what's going out there in the marketplace. And this isn't an easy challenge, and it's based in reality. But before I leap into what's going on now, I just wanted to take a step back about 10 years and do a little explanation for those of you who may not be aware as to where Marketreach came from and why it actually exists in today's world. And it came out of the fact that the industry was facing the most fundamental change probably in 500 years of the history of mail in the UK. Privatization had happened, which fundamentally changed the way everything delivered. And also, digital happened. And there was a digital explosion that was going on, and the world was thinking differently about what the opportunities were, what the options were, and where excitement could be had in the marketplace. And Marketreach came out of that to be the industry body, as I said, supporting all direct mail and door drop and the rationale for it. And we came from an earlier place. I've been at Marketreach about, and where we actually came, where we were when I arrived is we were looking, and I hate to use the word, but it was true. We were kind of apologetic about mail because all these wonderful things were happening digitally. And we started from proving that there was still a world where mail should be. There was still a role for it. So we spent a lot of time kind of down in the weeds proving mail and all of the exciting things about it. And a few years ago, the team, all the people at Marketreach, and we're a large team that looks at marketing and sales and business development and all that, we thought, why are we apologizing? Everything we do, all the research we're looking at, says it's a great medium, and we should be really proud of it and looking to the future of it all. So in the last few years, hopefully you've seen that there's been kind of a more positive and non-apologetic approach to the work that we're doing. And our vision at the moment is positioned as promoting the magic of mail to forward-thinking organizations of all shapes and sizes. And what we're doing is trying to reach the widest marketing community to help them understand and evaluate mail effectively. So it's about, there's something really special here, and that's what we want to communicate. And hopefully you've seen the campaign that went out about a year ago to just kind of re-establish and build that attitude in the marketplace. What we do, and particularly from my team, is explore mail. It's from every angle, it's for every audience, it's from every use. And as I said, a lot of the work we did when I first arrived was around how and why mail works. We have a huge amount of data sitting within that now, and we're really clear as to why it's going on. And we've then moved on to look at areas such as how mail works with other media, exploring the creativity and innovation that's possible, and just making sure that we're focused not on why we should try to shoehorn it back, but why it's a great choice in today's world and where it fits, where the great opportunities are. So what does bringing alive the magic of mail mean? It's a lot of things, because there's so much going on in terms of what mail brings to the media market. And it's everything, including it's excitement, it's new thinking, it's looking at the future, it's certainly data-centric, thought leadership, expertise, and as I said, that important last piece, that independence. We're about what Marketreach can say about the industry, not about what Royal Mail wants to say about the industry, so please no one come up and give me a hard time about prices. It wasn't me. But it's also about talking to a lot more audiences and making sure that the message is out there. And they're the classic audiences who we've always talked to, the brands and the agencies, you all, of course, data, industry, media, but trying to get beyond that and get to some of the places where you wouldn't ordinarily think we'd be in the room with some of these people. So getting into the C-suite and those people for whom saying we want to be digital first is a really interesting thing to say, but may not actually be the best thing for their business, making them think about what should be going on in the industry. Similarly, into finance and procurement teams, again, making them understand that it's not just about cost, it's about value, thinking about things in the right way. Industry bodies, tech innovators, we are trying to talk to as wide a body of people as we possibly can. So as I said, with a focus on broad and targeted, and it's looking at opportunities where we should be talking about things today, but also thinking about what's coming, looking at tomorrow. Where's the media industry going? Where's the communication going? Where's technology going? What should we be thinking about moving forward? So what I wanted to do today was just take you through a little taster, because at the core, for my team, a lot of what we do is about research and insight into the industry, the mail, what's happening, why things, what it means, what's the role of mail. So I wanted to take you through some of the most recent work that we've done in that industry and what we think it means for the market today, and then talk to you about the future. Research into mail during COVID. It affected everybody, and we needed to understand what it was meaning for mail. So we went out and we talked to the world, and Lord knows, COVID changed things in ways that people just never could have imagined. But what's interesting is they weren't all bad. And some interesting things happened with mail that were really powerful for us. And what we saw is that where pre-COVID, our data was showing us that mail was about 91% of all mail was engaged with. During COVID, that went up to 96%. And it really established for us that sense that there's a medium of the home, and it's mail. No other media is guaranteed to reach you there. People are reading digital wherever they happen to be. People are watching TV on their daily commute. Radio is coming in through your earpods while you're walking down the street. There's nothing else that's just in the home and that's having that kind of power. And during COVID, we were in our homes, and it really grew in importance, and people saw the value of it. And chick mail, which hopefully all of you who work with mail are highly engaged with, because it is the most powerful source of data we have these days for the work that we're doing, confirmed that this was all kinds of mail. It wasn't just that certain mail was cutting through, it was every single kind of mail was having an impact, with a huge growth in terms of what was going on in door drop as well. And it's because it's a medium that grabs attention. What we had is 88% of people said they were paying more attention, as much more attention to mail during lockdown. They were home, and it wasn't just because they were bored. There was TV, everybody was watching Netflix, people were cooking with their family. There were lots of other things to do, but mail was doing something important for them, and so people were paying attention to it. And an important part of what it was doing, and which mail often doesn't get credit for, but really came through powerfully in this research, is it was building brand connections. It was telling people about things that they needed to know, giving them more information, introducing them to new things. It remains, the most important thing that mail does is it goes on people's fridges. It stays with you in a way that very little other media can do. It was giving people information about their local areas. So at a time when we were stuck in our homes and the only place you could be was local, unless you were certain government officials, it told you about what was happening, and it told people about things in their areas that maybe they weren't aware of, and also had a huge impact on the food industry. If you were like me and you reached a point where you just couldn't cook anymore, 25% of people use restaurant and takeaway door drops, reported doing it during lockdown. They were cutting through, they were making people aware, they were taking them to important brands. So we went from the crisis of COVID. I feel like we've been doing crisis research for a while, but it was important for us. Most recently, we've done some look into mail and the cost of living crisis, because again, this is hitting us. People have to think about what's going on with communication. So what we wanted to look at in the work that we did was, again, is there a role for mail in terms of communication during what's coming to us? And if so, what is it? Because what's critical in all of the work that we do is not just to walk out and go, mail, hooray, here we are. It's about, when's the time? People are building marketing plans. People are building communication plans. It's about watching customer experience channel journeys. What's the right time to reach people? What's the right message to deliver them, and how do you do that? So our message has to be, this is where it's the perfect place to use mail. This is where you should be thinking about it. And in the cost of living crisis, what we realized is that brands have to think carefully about who they're speaking to, what they say, and how they get heard. It's going to be a challenge for brands to get it right and work their way through the things that are happening, because they have some audiences who are really worried, and they have some audiences who are going to be just fine. They have people who have really close relationships. They have people who are in danger of walking away. So where was that sweet spot? And the question became, when consumers are worried and frightened, how can brands cut through and help? So we were looking particularly at that audience. And what this research showed us is that when people have money worries, mail grabs attention more effectively than email. So when you're trying to talk to an audience that's worried and you need them to pay attention to your message, they're going to pay more attention to it if it comes through mail. 49% said that it was mail that was going to cut through to them, and interestingly, nobody in this room ever again say it's a medium for old people. We keep testing this in our research. Mail is a medium for everybody, and especially for young people. The 49% rose to 53% when we asked under 34s about what they were going to do. Mail grabs them for a variety of reasons. But if it's an important message, mail is a way to get it through. And it's really simple. They're more likely to open it. They're more likely to read it. It's not rocket science. Mail signifies that this is something that you should see and that's important. And so we're looking at numbers where 74% said they open most or all of their mail, and 63% are reading most or all of it, versus 21% opening their emails. I'm not here to tell you email's a bad channel. It's a great channel. You just need to understand that they do different things. And so when you have a message that's really important for people to know that it's been seen and read, this is where mail comes into its own. Underpinning a lot of this is another piece that's come out in a couple of pieces of research we've done recently, and that does stand out in the industry for us, which is this whole idea of scam, which has taken over the internet and has people understandably really worried. And over the last several years, mail has largely come out of being seen as a scam media. People just don't see it as one anymore. They look at their emails, they check it very carefully, they trust mail, and that's really underpinning a lot of the power of what's coming through with mail. So we looked at COVID, we looked at what's happening in the cost of living crisis. And a lot of the other work that we do is looking at different kinds of mail and how they're coming through in the marketplace. And when I first arrived at Marketreach, we were doing the private life of mail, which some of you may remember. And much of the work that we've done from that and onwards was about advertising mail, and very focused on that. We're largely a team that's come out of agency backgrounds, and so advertising was in our blood, and we spent a lot of time looking at that. But the question that kept coming up was, there's a mass of other mail, and historically it was referred to, many people in this room may think of it as business mail, and we've renamed it, we've called it customer mail, because it's not about tariff, it's about the messaging. And this is mail that goes to named individuals from companies that they have a relationship with. And rather than selling them anything, it's about building that relationship, providing them with the information that they need one by one. And they could be customers, they could be citizens, they could be students, they could be donors. It comes from a lot of organizations, but it's about the kinds of information that you have to keep the relationship going. So it's bills, it's statements, it's documents, it's loyalty reports, it's a whole range of information that comes that's not advertising mail classically. And we did deep dive into this, probably the biggest piece of research we've done at Marketreach since we did the private life of mail, to understand this really important piece. And what we were really looking for was, this is the kind of mail that's easily e-substituted, and that is being e-substituted quite a lot. And that happens because people were just dismissing it as unimportant communication. You might as well just, send it the cheapest way because it doesn't really matter. And if you're in an organization, it typically gets handed to Susie, the office junior, because nobody really cares about, doesn't think it matters what it looks like. It's just you have to send it, off it goes. And we thought, if that's what's really is the truth, and it doesn't matter how it goes, then we need to deal with that. But before we just walk away, does this mail matter? And can we figure out how? And it matters. It really matters, this mail. And it gets more attention and engagement than equivalent digital messaging, because sending mail about the relationship people have with the brand signifies that this is important. It says to people, we care about you, we know you, we want you to have a good relationship. This matters. And I'm not saying every piece of communication about this should go by mail, because people's front doors would start to look like their email inboxes. While that would be great for the industry, it would have an impact on what we're doing. But there are times in the relationship that this mail really matters. And if you're not sending it by mail, you're possibly weakening your brand. And it doesn't just signify importance, it signifies importance at twice the level of digital is what came out of this research. When something comes through in mail, people go, I probably need to open this because it might be something I need to do. I need to take action on what's going on, and I'd better pay attention. That's endlessly, whether we did qualitative, we did quantitative, we've talked to people about all of this, and they see a letter and it says to them importance. It may sit in their kitchen for a couple of days while they work up the nerve to open it, because sometimes they're worried about what it can say. And we do. I know that there's a fear factor going on. But they know it's important, and ultimately the JIC data as well shows us they're going to open it. This is mail that gets opened. And it's not really secret. It's the physicality. That's what's really working for us, and we see this over and over again, and we've seen it in all of the research that we've done. It's physical, it's personal, it's human and real. It's just that company cared enough. They wanted me to have something in their hands. And in a world that's becoming increasingly digital, where we're shopping at stores that don't have a physical presence, where high street banks are being closed, and there's no place to go, where you're being asked to go on to chat instead of actually talking to a person or going in store. It's a physical representation. It's that classic, it's the brand in the hand. And that's what mail's doing for people. Our neuroscience research shows that mail is 49% more memorable than email. So it's not just that it's cutting through, it's going into people's brains. It's helping brands be remembered. And it also builds a really positive perception. People feel good about a brand that sends them mail. And at the core of all of this, and what we saw in this research, and we see it in the research, is there's a huge amount of trust in the channel. You're going to send it to me. It's going to come through. It's true. I believe it. And I trust the mail that I receive. I'm not looking for a scam. I don't think you're trying to con me. People know that it takes time, it takes effort, it takes money to get a piece of mail out. They send cards. They know that that's different than sending an email. And so they trust it. And that's the most powerful thing I think that mail delivers of all, is that level of trust. So that's a lot of, probably more detail than you'd hoped for, but in terms of the kinds of things that we're looking at, and that's what we've been doing for the last few years. But as I said, looking at things now, but we also have to keep going forward and looking at what's going on and what's coming in the future. So what's one of the biggest things we're looking at for the future? And we believe that the future is phygital. I don't think it's digital, we think it's phygital. Digital's growing, it's going nowhere, it's only going to become bigger, but the world is physical. And Mark Zuckerberg can head for the metaverse as much as he wants, but I don't want to live there. I might want to visit, but I'm not going to live there. I've got a physical world, and the combination of the two is where we think the future lies. So it's understanding how to really bring that alive, because what we see, particularly as digital natives grow and become the world, is that they're really good at moving back and forth between the two. They know when they want physical and when they want digital, and the world happily moves back and forth. Because they value the authenticity and the touch that comes from a physical world. It's important to them. I mean, one of the things, I have two 20-something daughters. I read on a Kindle, they buy books. They haven't walked away from the physical world at all. People are, there's the vinyl thing. People left cities and moved out to the country during COVID because they wanted a life back that they felt mattered to them. This physical world is going to stay part of us, and people are not walking away from that. And what that means is that it makes mail more relevant than ever because of its physicality. As I said before, that superpower comes into the fore. Because it's, I grew up in an agency world, And so all of our watchword is when everybody's zigging, you want to zag. And so here comes mail giving us the zag. In a world where your email inbox fills up constantly, mail cuts through. It disrupts, so we become the disruptor medium, which is a great position to be in, and it delivers messages that people read, that they engage with, that cuts through. So this quote from some of our research: in today's Zoom meeting and email fatigue, people are looking for ways to cut through. Something tangible like mail is equivalent to receiving a gift that shows someone is thoughtful enough to send you something. We're used to receiving things digitally. Emails don't feel personal anymore. They may be personalized, but they're not personal. Mail's the personal media that's cutting through. And what it does, therefore, is it gives you that direct line to a customer. It's got somebody's name on it. It's got somebody's address on it. It can have information about them that makes them believe that a brand knows them and understands them. What am I doing? And so in a market that's really focused on the customer experience and the whole journey that people have, it's about thinking, where does mail fit in that experience? And one way that whole phygital customer experience piece came together for us is, I cannot tell you how many meetings I sat in over the years. We went, how do we get QR codes? Who knew it would take a pandemic to bring the QR code into power? But it did. And they've really stood through. And it's made that marriage of paper and pixel come alive. QR codes are really standing out in mail. We're seeing more and more work coming through in tech with augmented reality and the ability to really move seamlessly from a piece of paper to the internet. One of the next areas we should be looking at is voice activation. The combination of mail and digital is really powerful in building that connection, and it has to come through. So what we're doing in the work that we're doing is continuing to build that conversation so that we're talking about all of these issues and building relationships and taking mail out of a box, making sure it's part with the organizations that we should be talking to. We're continuing to look at research and partnerships, working closely with JICMail and understanding as that evolves even further and becomes more and more powerful as the basis of the work that we're doing. Thinking about data and new data sources as the world changes, as possibly we get a UK GDPR, as we're looking at a cookieless world, and looking at how we should be enhancing mail and things like programmatic mail, and what can the industry be doing? How do we change it? How do we make organizations think differently about mail? Doesn't take a long time and a lot of prep, but it can be an almost immediate response. And then lastly, as I said before, young people, not accepting anybody who's going to look at this as an old people's channel, because it's just not. Young people open their mail just as much, if not more, than older people. They're 22% more likely than the general population to think that brands make the effort to write to them value them more. They're 20% more likely to trust it. So this is a generation that doesn't trust anybody, but they trust mail. They're twice as likely to agree that they pay more attention to it. So you know how sometimes you get a birthday text from certain brands or an email, it's your birthday, here's a voucher, but some brands send a postcard with the voucher. It stands out more. You remember a postcard most because of the physical action of having to pick up the post and look at it. It's cutting through. They recognize and they know it. Whoop. So I started today by looking backwards, but we're really looking forwards. We're constantly moving, and we think the future is bright. We think the opportunity and the role mail plays is coming. We're focused on bringing that to life at Marketreach, whether it's through innovation and creativity, media partnerships, looking at the power of data, and supporting the entire industry in any way that we can. So we're here, we're doing that. Please, if there's any way that we can help, please get in touch, because we look forward to continuing that work together. Thank you.